Hello, sisters and brothers. Our devotional for today, from May 23, is a reflection on My Utmost for His Highest, a series of devotionals written and compiled by Oswald Chambers. You can always find the link to the daily devotional at utmost.org. And for today's devotional, Chambers talks about our careful unbelief, and he returns to a passage that we just looked at a few days ago from Matthew chapter 6. So I'm going to read Matthew 6:25 through 27. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And as I mentioned, the devotional is titled Our Careful Unbelief, looking at verse 25 of Matthew chapter 6. Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Jesus summed up common sense carefulness in the life of a disciple as unbelief. If we have received the Spirit of God, He will squeeze right through our lives as if to ask, now where do I come into this relationship, this vacation you have planned, or these new books you want to read? And He always presses the point until we learn to make Him our first consideration. Whenever we put other things first, there is confusion. Do not worry about your life. Don't take the pressure of your provision upon yourself. It is not only wrong to worry, it is unbelief. Worrying means we do not believe that God can look after the practical details of our lives, and it is never anything but those details that worry us. Have you ever noticed what Jesus said would choke the word when he puts it in us? Is it the devil? No. The cares of this world, a parable from Matthew 13, verse 22. It is always our little worries. We say, I shall not trust when I cannot see, and that is where unbelief begins. The only cure for unbelief is obedience to the Spirit. The greatest word of Jesus to His disciples is abandon. So as we look at that, and one of the phrases that comes to mind when Chambers mentions it in another devotional is about giving up the right to ourselves. And if we reflect on the life of Jesus, we know that that's exactly what Jesus did. He gave up the right to Himself in order to be fully aligned with the will and the plans of God, His Father, for the sake of us, for our salvation. And we have to do the same in the sense that we have to give up the right to our plans in order to follow through on God's plans for our lives. And we do allow God's Spirit to be choked out or drowned out in our own life when we become concerned with the little worries and those little details that we feel as if we have to take care of those, as if we are somehow responsible for our own provision. And that's really a step towards us returning to the sense of independence, which again, the other day we talked about the original sin. There's so much wrapped up in that. But one of the things is that we want our independence. We want to assert our way of doing things. God has asked us to be dependent on Him. And one final thought on this, as we think about our unbelief and what comes up, is a friend of mine asked me not so long ago about what do I think about leaps of faith, and I just reflected on some of the points in time in my life where I felt like I was moving forward as God had directed me, and I always found that those were more steps of faith than leaps. I don't really feel like God has often called us to really jump over things that we don't see how it's going to happen. That can happen. That can be the case. But more often is that we move forward with steady progression by continually walking with God and aligning our spirit with God's Spirit in our lives. So just consider that and how you can continue to move forward and to drown out your own unbelief. But thank you as always for listening. Be safe and stay well.